Welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast. I'm Pidge.
And I'm Moen.
We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them. Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Welcome back. This episode is dedicated to the Easter Bunny.
Not to Jesus.
Not to... Speaking of Jesus.
Oh, okay.
Certain people at work are going to be so mad that I'm pitching their business idea for Jesus biscuits.
Okay.
And can you imagine a Jesus bicky with...
Are you saying Jesus as in Lord and Saviour or
our
Jesus?
Jesus.
Jesus.
Our Lord and Saviour.
Yeah.
Apologies if you're religious. This is wildly offensive
This is
to
not
you.
the podcast for you.
Jammy hands.
Jammy hands.
Think about it. Jammy foot. Jammy hands.
Oh, jammy. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it. Yep, that's good. That's a good one. Good golden egg.
I'm here to talk to you about Jesus.
About Jesus Christ. So thank you, Easter Bunny, for taking over this holiday for those of us who are not religious.
Yes.
Thank you for allowing me the excuse of eating an entire red tulip rabbit.
Yeah.
Guilt-free.
Solidly every year, guilt-free. It's Easter. It's a different time.
It is. It doesn't count. The calories on Easter don't count.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
It is.
Yes.
Oh.
It's the most wonderful time. No, we do love Christmas more.
We do.
So you know. Anyway, chapter 6.
Right. Now, Priska stands shaking her head at Lorien the next morning. He failed to explain to her that when he offered her a horse, he actually meant to share one. Now, this is a well-known trope.
If I could marry a trope, it would be this.
Okay, so what do you call this? Go.
So this is the one horse trope,
Or
forced proximity,
or
I love it,
or as I now call it, half horse trope.
Because you've got half a horse
Because you're allowed half a horse each.
I mean, I am dead. And he calls her sweetheart. I'm dead. I'm dead. Kill me now. I'm in the ground.
And she is like, it's okay. I could share with one of the men that I actually like.
Yeah.
And he makes this bullshit excuse about his horse is bigger and more suitable. Of course, your horse is bigger and more suitable.
Yeah. This is why he's my book boyfriend. Honestly, even though he says she's real scrawny, any horse could carry her little beady eyes. Now, what I love, because I am someone that rides a horse, is that she mounts and she deliberately swings her leg. So as you get up, you put one foot in the stirrup, right, and you swing the other one up and over. She deliberately swings it wide, which is a well-known thing to do if you just want to actually kick somebody. Yeah. And she nearly does.
It's the right height.
Yeah.
It's like head anywhere from crutch to head height, depending on how big the horse is. So it's brilliant. Also, he mounts behind her, and she describes being caged in with his arms that are bigger than his biceps are bigger than her thighs. I didn't know that getting on a horse could be so erotic.
Honestly. He was still panther silent and far quicker than a man of his bulk. And that makes him dangerous. And we do love a dangerous daddy.
Now, they set off and she holds herself quite stiffly, which you would. But they have given her clothes to wear. They're oversized but far more suitable than her soggy clear dress. The path they're on eventually widens and Cavis rides alongside them and introduces himself.
Now, Lorraine reveals that Cavus's wife has just given birth to their first child, a daughter, and she describes him as beaming with joy about this, which is really sweet. And we get more dad vibes from him as time goes on.
We learn that Cavus has the power of understanding every language spoken in this kingdom and in every other kingdom. And we also learn that Morth gets glimpses into a person's past. Very impressive. Lorien puts a stop to all the introductions and they stop to have a rest. Lorien proclaims it's time for Priska too to have her first lesson of utilising her power. Before they get started, Priska learns that they're carrying something called Fey fire. Once it catches, it basically never goes out and it's equally dangerous and useful. It's doused by a plant called the damask weed, which is dried and ground into a fine powder, and just a pinch of that mixed with water extinguishes the Fey fire. I love the drip-fed tidbits about the world building that's occurring, because like there's obviously like lots of elemental magic and we're learning about all these things, and I love it. Even though we're at chapter 6, we're learning so much already. I feel like I just sunk into this book from this point on.
I think that Stacya's quite down to earth as well in terms of mentioning something like fire that never goes out. As a reader, I think she knows that people would be like, oh, but like what? What do you mean? What happens if a village catches alight? Like what would you do? You know, like where your mind sort of naturally goes for something like that. So she just provides enough that it seems plausible in your mind. You're like, oh, okay, there is a way to put the fire out.
It's just
convoluted. And then you sort of move on, but you know what it is now.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? As opposed to leaving this sentence or this paragraph going, well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's developed. Yeah. It's time for Priska's lesson, and he tells her that power manifests when it senses threat. And she doesn't really want to tell him all of the information, but it's necessary that if he's going to help her wield her power, she eventually obliges. She tells him that her mother was a seer and her father was a mind healer, so they were always welcome in the many villages that they moved to and from. They tried to use her power and it's an absolute train wreck, basically. And then we switch to Lorien's point of view.
Well, he does start throwing rocks at her, which made me be like, oh, I don't think a man has ever thrown a rock at a woman and gotten a good outcome, Lorien, but okay.
He's got unconventional methods.
He does.
Yeah.
He said, if you need to feel afraid, I can make that happen. I'd be like, with rocks.
Oh, look, I'm sorry, but if someone as delicious as him said that to me, I'd be like, yep. So while Priska bathes in the freezing water, we notice Lorien noticing her body, but equally admiring he's fed up with her constant questions.
Yep.
Another thing that is oddly similar about a conventional marriage like mine.
Yes.
She has absolutely no sleep, so she dozes in Lorien's arms while they're on horseback.
Yeah.
And he wants to tighten his arms around her for two reasons. One is testosterone-based and the other one is downright male violence. But he makes the realisation that any broken bones are only going to slow them down.
Yes.
And he needs her at the gates. So they're keeping on going.
Yeah, they're keeping on keeping on.
They're keeping on.
True, as I would call it, but she's going straight.
Keep true.
Keeping true.
Marth goes to say something about Lorien holding her tenderly and eats his words when Lorien gives him a bombastic side-eye. He's enjoying the silence a lot, something I'm sure my husband also does when I'm asleep, which is why he doesn't, and I quote, wake the bear.
A bird cries overhead, which wakes her up. And I mean, could you imagine when you have a little bit of sleep and then you finally fall asleep again, like the rhythmic swaying of the horse, and then that fucking bird, I would have shot it with a bow and arrow, honestly.
When she wakes, she's perplexed about the change of plans and immediately gets wild with rage and says, "Let me off this fucking horse right now."
Yes. I love it when women swear in books.
Me too.
Yeah, because the men often do, but the women don't a lot because it is this ye old, and ye old means that women don't do provocative things like swearing.
That's why we live in this lifetime.
Because I could not hold my tongue. He is like, absolutely not. You're not getting down. And if you don't hold up your end of the bargain, I will just tie you to the horse with a rope and you'll have to walk behind us. Yeah. She feels the days flying by, and Marth, as in Morth, pointed out to her that heading away from the city is actually a good thing because the north gates would be more heavily guarded if her story had reached the city, which, as we know, news travels fast. It starts to get cold with the sun setting, and Lorien informs her that they'll be stopping at the village for the night. But Priska is very stressed about this because she knows that more villages, more people equals more opportunity for them to call for the king's guard.
Yeah.
And he tells her that she doesn't need to be afraid, to which she responds sarcastically and is like, well, why would I be afraid when I have so many big, strong men to protect me?
Exactly.
She's obviously being sarcastic because she does not trust them to protect her yet. And Rethos returns and grimly informs them that there's only 2 rooms available at the inn. And Priska's like, sweet, like between the 2 rooms, there's 6 of us in total, like 3 per room on the floor, that's fine.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we can't share a room with you because people in these sorts of towns will make assumptions and then you'll get a reputation. And she very so kindly reminds them that she is indeed a wanted criminal who will be on the run for the rest of her life. So such rumours do not bother her.
No. We do learn that Gallon is the oldest and very intensely loyal to Lorien, and probably why he's had enough sense and wisdom to rescue Priska in the first place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of back and forth about practicing time-wielding magic, and we know Lorien is desperate for Priska to do this with confidence so that they can make haste on their mission. They have a hot meal, which must be nice after what she's been living off. Mm-hmm. And while she's up at the bar, she slams into the chest of another hard male. Honestly, heaven.
But this male has a grey beard down to his chest, and he starts prattling on at her about how much of a beauty she is, but that her dress is dirty, and he says he would happily drop it on his floor to be laundered, which is the ye old version of, that's a nice shirt, it would look better on my floor.
That's exactly right.
Now, Beardy McGee
yes,
is going on, and Lorien stands and says, move.
Yeah.
And Beardy's like, well, don't cause a scene loudly enough to, in fact, cause a scene. And Beardy McGee lunges at Lorien, but Lorien moves faster than he should be able to and slaps him. And I love it when men slap other men because it's so insulting.
It is, and not only once, but twice.
And the second time he breaks his nose with a slap. Oh.
You've just known he's thrown his whole weight behind this slap and he's broken his nose. Oh, my God.
He says, whore to Priska. And she's like, what the fuck?
What did I
do?
Yeah.
What did I do except stand here in a dirty dress? And he takes one last look at Lorien before turning and fleeing and stumbles out of the inn. Now, Priska sheds a single tear. And Lorien misinterprets this tear to mean that she has been hurt, when in fact she's actually upset as the water from her cup had been spilt and she wanted that water.
This is you at work.
Yes. And I can relate to being so close to the line that even the smallest inconvenience will cause you to want to jump off the bridge.
Yeah.
And I read this and I remembered that not only a few weeks ago was I having one of these days, that a bit of paper from my desk fluttered to the floor at work. And I honestly looked at it and thought, I'm going to fucking lose my lid. I'm going to flip this desk like a beast.
We have a stressful job, okay? Don't judge us.
And I too have cried over the silliest of things, and it was not sillier than spilt water.
Now, Marth has a classic reaction. He says, we haven't seen you cry before, that's all. We wondered, maybe you were on your woman time. This is the writing I love.
And this is the ye old version. So woman time is obviously what they referred to it as back then. And now we just call it Shark Week.
Or riding the dragon.
Or I like to call it riding the dragon. The ups and downs. And also to clarify, that's not fourth wing related. It's literally hormone related.
Yeah.
the dragon of my hormones.
So after her another near-death experience, Priska is offered to be taught how to fight. And she's like, oh, I don't know how to fight. And anyway, they have an exchange and she ultimately agrees to learn how to fight, which is great because I think she recognises that from now on is kind of it's a bit problematic in her world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learn what you can while you can.
So she retires to her room and has a restless sleep due to, being in the noisiest inn that's ever existed.
Yeah.
Beard enters the room.
Oh, Beardy McGee's back.
Putrid. His actions are that of a drunken rapist as she tries to fight him. And he has some heinous threats that he drunk whispers in her ear, and she manages to pull a knife out from under her pillow and starts slashing at him. She, with her panic, manages to stop time, but only for a tiny second before he actually realizes, and now he wants her for an entirely different reason.
Yeah.
For financial gain. She uses her rage to slash him over and over. The epitome of violence.
Yeah. She's taking out her sadness on that cup of water.
Correct. Yeah. She is you flicking the actual desk.
Yeah.
So blood is spraying everywhere before Lorien and the pretty posse enter the room. Rethos is the first to talk. Give me the knife, darling. You can imagine this in a cowboy accent.
Yeah.
Give me the knife, darling.
Yeah.
Or at least I can. Lorien has a heart and says, you don't need to talk about it, noticing that she's traumatized as fuck.
Yes.
But she explains anyway. Priska thinks they should leave, but Lorien is convinced it'll be fine, and then we get the one bed trope.
Yes, it's not what you would expect though, which I love. I don't love an immediate one bed trope.
No.
But Morth brings her a peppermint tea. Of course he fucking does. I love Morth.
He's my favourite.
I laughed the first time it happened to me, and now everything Morth does, I'm right here for.
Yeah.
And he brings her peppermint tea. Love that. Yes, everyone's drunk. It's time to go to bed. So she does start looking for a bedroll. She's like, oh, okay, well, where the fuck am I going to lay? And he's like, come and have the bed. Who was in the bed before this? We not know.
We don't know, do we?
I assume it was Lorien.
Yeah, he would have been for sure.
And she gets in. They hand her a clean shirt and a wet cloth for her blood spattered face. So she wipes away her face, and then they all turn their backs while she removes her whatever it was she was wearing and puts on this big old t-shirt for bed.
You can just tell Cavus is like staring at the wall. Rethos is like trying to do this one.
Yes.
Mark's like,
Yeah.
and Gallon's like, fucking picking his nose, and Lorien's like seething with rage that anyone's thinking about Priska.
Yeah. He's like staring like subtly out of his eye to make sure that none of them are looking at her.
If you want me to describe the visuals for any artwork, let me know. I've got it. It's all up here, okay?
Now, she climbs into bed and cries.
You do.
Yeah,
you do. If she's had a big day, she's murdered.
She's murdered thrice.
She's almost been raped.
Yeah.
She's knocked over her fucking H2O.
Yeah. She's
and
dehydrated. I get very cranky when I'm dehydrated too. But she's also mourning her family, her village, and her life. She knows that her kidnapped/adopted mother is dead, and she's spiraling out of control. But a warm hand jolts her from her mourning, and it's Lorien, and he says, "Move over." And he sits down next to her and he says, "Sleep, savage woman, I'll keep you safe."
Yes.
Like, yes, but I would not be sleeping.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the other men are there. Yeah. Probably, maybe after a little while.
Yeah.
The next morning.
Yeah, it's putrid really, isn't it?
She stands and stares at Beardy McGee, who's been strung up by a hook in front of the fireplace. His teeth have been broken and a key shoved between them, and she would bet all the money she doesn't have that that's likely the key to her room. And also his hands had been cut off, so there's stumps.
Stumps McGee.
Stumps McGee.
So Priska's not strong enough to do this, so three guesses who.
Yeah. She doesn't know when he did it though. She was like, oh, I don't know when he must have done it. So he must have waited till she was asleep and then snuck out. Or maybe he just did it before I came back into the room to begin with. We'll never know.
We will never know. Tell us, Dals.
Now, the other men have the horses prepared and Lorien reaches for her, but she flinches and he says, do you think I'm going to hurt you? And she says no, but he's also now very careful not to touch her as she mounts. I don't like the word mounts, but it is the official term and you shall use
Your
it.
need to be official bothers me in this instance.
I think it's because I ride. Do you know what I mean?
I know you
And
ride.
so I'm like, if someone says mount up, I'm like, oh, okay. Like I don't see it as
Oh, yeah,
what
okay.
it
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
but I know what it sounds like.
Okay, yeah, good.
Also, Hayley
Oh.
Walker, back me up here. She rides too. If I say mounts to you, Hayley, what do you think?
She's also an author, okay?
Okay, yeah.
She's 50-50. I'm sure she knows that your dirty mind. Back me up, Hayley. Putrid, this one. Putrid.
They brought her some dresses, a tunic, some breeches, and some boots from the market.
Isn't that nice?
Bless them.
They
I
did-
think it was
part of the-
Cavis.
It was part of the deal. Do you think it was Cavis?
I do think it was
Because
Cavis.
he's, quite paternal lately.
Yes,
New
and
dad vibes.
Yeah, and because he has dealt with a woman before.
True. He has a wife.
Yes.
Yes.
So they continue for long hours until they stop to water the horses.
Lorien brings to Priska's attention that she's been quite murderous lately.
Yes.
Yeah. And she must be definitely riding the dragon at this point. But Priska decides Lorien's confusing as fuck because one moment he's leaving Priska for dead at the river and the next minute he's raging, hanging a dead body up at the inn for all to see just because Beard attacked Priska.
Yeah.
So
He didn't even well, he did, but to begin with, he did. No, okay, never mind.
receiving.
It's like
When Priska vows she has to survive for Tibris, Lorien says, don't survive for anyone else. Survive for yourself. Survive because the thought of not surviving, the thought of letting those who would hurt you win, is so repulsive you can't stand it. Survive because you deserve to survive. And I quite like that.
I quite like that too. Yep.
Anywho's, another lesson of time magic wielding, and Lorien takes it one step too far this time. He is not fazed by Priska's death threats and describes them as cute and is only interested in her time magic as that's the only chance she has to hurt him.
I want to talk about Herika's cat.
Oh, do you? Of course you do. Look, go ahead, please.
So she talks about the fact that the cat had killed a rodent and brought it in, and Herika was like, "Ugh!"
Yes.
and went and buried the mouse because she felt bad, and then the cat disappeared for weeks, and then she cried because the cat disappeared. But I'm very confused about why it's in this bit.
Yeah, and the reason it's not in my notes is because it doesn't matter.
It does to me. Herika's cat.
Look, sure.
And
It's
the problem
Ginger,
is,
surely.
the problem is that it reminds me, when I talk about people being a snoot, I will refer to them and say, you're throwing your cat at everybody.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Your pussy.
Yeah. So when I say Herika's cat and you say it's orange,
Oh, Ginger.
yes, that's what I'm thinking about. You're a
Priska's-
ginger mint.
When earlier in the notes, when Beard says, "Oh, you're a wee pretty one, aren't you?" I said it in the Scotch finger biscuit in your ginger mint accent.
I think that we only speak in a Scottish accent at work now.
Yeah,
It's the
I would
only
love
way
to.
to do
I
it.
would love to hear someone answer 000. What's the exact address of the emergency? Apologies to any Scots listening. My accent's pathetic.
Also,
Australians can't do accents.
Can you call, if you are Scottish, can you call us and talk to us because we love your accent?
Yeah, actually, any Irish man or Scottish man,
Yeah. We'd like to hear from you.
we would. Yeah.
Lorien does go one step too far by pulling out Beardy McGee's rope.
Oh yes, this is
From his coat, no less.
yes.
Where?
It's like Inspector Gadget.
There must be so many things.
Yeah.
If you can conceal an entire rope in your coat,
Yes.
could you imagine what else is in
I
there?
want to know how long the rope is.
Well, it would be long-ish, at
Yeah.
least 2 meters, I reckon.
Oh, that's oddly specific.
I mean, like, why would you have a 1 meter rope? Like in ye old time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like most ropes, you'd just curl up the end if you didn't need to use that bit of it, right? It'd be long.
Now we're getting into it. Priska's very panicked at the sight of this rope, which was obviously the intention that
Yes.
Lorien had. But honestly, she's trying to scramble for breath, let alone wield her fucking magic at this point. Terra is not helping her use her power.
No.
Rethos comes running and bellowing at Lorien, and then the world freezes.
Yeah.
Whilst time's frozen, Priska pulls herself away from Lorien, grabs the rope, yeeting it into the river, and then proceeds to front kick Lorien in the balls before running away. And then the grip of her power wanes, and Lorien's the first to break free from it, shortly followed by Rethos. He's still an ice sculpture for a millisecond. She's fuming as she begins to panic leave, and she says, "Fuck this bargain," and Morth.
Fuck this and fuck you.
Morth is just grinning from ear to ear. Rethos gives Lorien a lecture about overstepping, and Galen tells Lorien to be careful because rage can simmer for years. And that's a smart man right there.
yes.
He's obviously been in a long-standing relationship, and he's like, my wife, she really let. Oh, I watched an awful true crime something or other today that reminds me of this. Yes, I'll tell you about it later. Actually,
Good.
Yes. Where was I? Anyway, you go.
Lorien's bent in half and Morth. I'm going to say that again.
Yeah.
Lorien's bent in half and Morth tells her not to bother leaving as Lorien takes his bargain very seriously, which is very fey of you, Lorien. Very fey of you.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Now, we swap into Lorien's point of view now, and he does feel guilty about what he did to Priska. Rethos says that he thinks Priska should ride with him, and Lorien is instantly on the defense about that, which is the beginning of the end, yes.
I love it.
And he absolutely hates that idea. He storms away, and Galen does indeed inform him, that Priska could have killed him in that moment when she froze time, but she chose not to. She chose to kick him in the balls, which was arguably just as good.
Definitely.
They saddle up to leave, and Priska indeed rides with Rethos this time. He mentions that he misses her curvy ass and decides it's been far too long, and once their task is over, he will find a willing woman.
I'm over here.
Right here.
Hello,
sir.
Yeah. Sir.
They reach the edge of the forest, and Lorien says they'll camp here tonight. Now, when Priska jumps from the horse, he sees the pain that she has. Right. And she's in pain from riding all day and, being attacked and such things.
Riding the dragon.
And riding the dragon. And he thinks it's nothing compared to his poor testicles.
Oh.
He says to her, "You can thank me for my lesson whenever you're ready." Ooh, and those are fighting words, aren't they?
He hasn't learned.
Wants a fight.
He hasn't learned. No man who's been in a relationship with a woman on her period or not has muttered words like this to provoke an attack.
Yeah.
Dumb.
Dumb. Absolute ding-dong dum-dum.
Ding-dong dickhead.
She gives him the finger, and it makes all the other men laugh. And they set about making camp, and Lorien busies himself with the horses, and he busies himself into the point where there's nothing else for him to do. So he goes over to the fire where Priska and Rethos are whispering. He joins them just in time to hear Priska ask what Rethos's power is. And Lorien says, "Didn't you know, Wildcat, Rethos has the power to make you like him." And I thought, wouldn't that be awful?
That would be a shitty power. Obviously.
I would hate it if I had to make people like me, and that was the only good thing I could do. I couldn't stand it.
You would like the opposite.
Yes.
Yes, you have the opposite, in
Yes.
fact. Yes. But in all honesty, of all the cool powers, this is probably the most boring.
It's a shit one.
It's very, very circumstantially beneficial,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
anyway, someone's got to do this dirty work.
Yeah. Rethos. That's
Rethos.
who.
Good on you, Rethos Stars. Well done.
He says to Priska that he swears he's never used his power on her. And it's very clear that Lorien is deliberately driving a wedge between them. But Priska, I think, also knows this. So she takes Rethos's hand and says to him that she believes him. And when they settle down, Lorien chooses the closest bedroll to Priska just to annoy her.
I love this.
And based on the look that she gives him before she turns over, it definitely works. And he watches her fall asleep, but she jolts awake shortly after. She turns to face him and she says, I used to see you in my dreams. Now all I see is the men that I've killed, before she falls back asleep.
And he's like, what?
Yeah.
But she's like, not conscious.
I would wake her up.
Yeah, I would too. I'd
Yeah.
be like, hold on a minute. You
Yes.
dream of me? And then there'd be some sort of moment.
Yes.
But
And the book would
Stacia-
end.
Stacia has the slow burn
Yeah.
down pat.
Yes, she does. The next day, Lorien insists that Priska ride with him. And she's like, oh, fucking here we fucking go again. Fuck. But she does, because they all appear tense and quiet. So she's like, whatever. The forest gives way to like yellow and green bushes, brown grass, tall, thin trees that reach into the sky. And they stop and dismount, and Lorien tells her that she will stay with Galen, but she wants to know where everyone else is going and what the fuck they're doing. However, she does have a secret of her own. Thanks to Lorien's little trick, she's figured out the root of her power. And in fact, she's been practicing all day. She's still only able to achieve a few seconds at a time. And as far as we know, no one has noticed this yet. She has no intention of telling the men until she absolutely has to. Now they all leave, and Priska waits for the opportune moment. She starts acting like she needs to wee, and she tells Galen that she needs to duck behind a bush. And he's like, okay, but hurry up. And she says, it'll take as long as it takes. And his eyes wide. She's referring to a number 2. Could you imagine?
He's like,
When everyone comes back, Lorien will be like, which one of you took a shit?
honestly.
Which one of you took a shit? Well, disgusting.
It was one of yous. Disgusting. Which one of yous haven't bothered to flush when you've done a shit? No, but also, how fucking awkward's a bush poo? Like
I don't know, I've
covered
never done
bush
it.
wees
I've
on
n-
many an occasion,
I've
but a
never-
bush poo,
Never done a bush poo.
I think I would rather shit in my pants.
And clap.
Disgusting. Well, it was one of yous.
If anyone doesn't know,
You just have to look it up.
there's a video and it's called Which One of Yous Took a Shit?
And we've been playing it at work on repeat this week, honestly. It's fucking
And it's
gold.
it's hilarious. We're very much in our Scottish era.
We are. We really
And,
are.
Yeah, and there's a lot of videos about the funny things happening to Scottish people. And we are very much applying them to every circumstance
Yeah.
that we get. But anyway, literally, she pretends to go and take a poo. And he looks back. She goes, off she goes. And she looks, oh God.
Oh, wow.
This was what I was laughing about.
Yeah, clearly. I've had that realisation. This is about the time. Yeah.
I literally wrote, which one of you took a SHET?
Shit. Which one of you took a shit? Well, it was one of yous.
Disgusting.
Disgusting.
So off she goes and she looks back and finds Galen checking the horse's feet. So she's like, the time is now. She hides and then uses her power. So time is frozen and she crawls / army ninjas.
Commando crawls.
Yep.
Yeah.
In the direction that they went. And she doesn't have to go far. She finds them speaking to 2 cloaked figures, and one of them, their cloak accidentally slips off when they're laughing, which is an aggressive laugh to throw your head back like that, but I get it. Sometimes I laugh and my headset will fall off. which is quite funny.
Wow.
Yes.
This one or your work
No,
one?
my work one.
Oh.
Yes. And in fact, he has pointed ears.
Ooh.
Fae.
Faye.
Now, her fear turns into fury. The Fae were the reason that they had to give up their magic, and there would be no taking or gifting ceremony without them. So she's like, I fucking hate them. She realizes that she likes these men and she feels upset about what they're doing, essentially working with the Fae. Now, she returns pretending like she's taken a shit. And Galen is none the wiser because
Yeah.
who is he to question? When you got to go, you got to go.
Yeah, he's not going,
Yeah. He's not attending the scene.
no.
Now, the rest return and Lorien notices her dirty hands and knees. How does he know the bush poo position? She could have just been doing a interesting position, not chasing him.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, that's fair.
He doesn't say anything but she knows she won't be getting any sleep tonight. So she knows that he knows that she knows.
And you know that I know that you know that I know that.
Galen and Priska work on her self-defense the next day. He puts her through never-ending drills to teach her how to get her body to respond automatically. And that's his reasoning for how you're able to survive, is that your body reacts how it would always react, essentially. He says that the reason she survived so far is because men have continued to underestimate her, and she thinks, long may it last.
Yes, absolutely. After Galen has trained her hard, they go to leave and Lorien demands that she rides with him. And annoying for Lorien, Priska's horse absolutely loves her, nibbles her gently, and thoughts flow back to her of her birth parents and the fact that she was kidnapped from them by Mama. They get to another inn and Lorien barks, "My wife and I need a room." And she's like,
They're just trying to constantly one-up each other
yeah.
in their attempt to embarrass each other.
Yeah.
Right?
So Priska's falling over at this comment. Of course, their best room is available. Here we fucking go. Dinner and breakfast is also included, might I add. I wonder if they got a last minute discount.
Oh, no.
Whatif.com. Lorien's possessiveness is now developing, which is another trope that I absolutely love. Because he grabs her and he says, "You go nowhere alone." And I'm like,
Yeah. Yes.
Marth sends his best swagger to the barmaid serving the food and drinks.
Yes.
As Priska's mind floats back to Esinia again. She's got 5 delicious men and she's thinking about her bestie. This is me.
Yeah.
Being with 5 delicious men thinking of you.
Yes.
And you would be at home pining for me.
Yes, I would be.
You would.
I wouldn't care if you were corrupt.
You would prefer it.
In fact, yes. I feel like you would also know there would be signs.
Oh, yes.
I would not be able to hold that in. I'm not a good liar.
No.
But the barmaid.
Oh, the barmaid is clearly trying to suss out her nightly fuck. So she asks Priska, which one of these is yours? And Priska says, "They're all mine." This is me.
Yes. And I love the way that Stacia writes these. I can't even think of the word as to what they are, but just these surprising moments.
Yeah.
And I can see that Priska is basically just pissing Lorien off because he introduced her earlier as his wife.
Yeah.
But also just having a bit of banter with the men because I don't think women would typically do that sort of
Not
thing.
in this time
No,
as well. Like
that's
you would
right.
be very prim and proper.
Yes.
But she's with a bunch of mercenaries and they're all quite laddie.
Yeah.
So, and because they're all close, I think she leans into it a fair bit. Yeah.
Lorien eventually drags her away and she gets up and, is being dragged, but she smiles and she says, "Let's go to our room. See you all later." And winks at them.
And he says, "My wife has a filthy mouth."
Yes, she does.
Yes, she does.
She follows him up the stairs and they find a bath in the room which has already been filled. Gently, he nudges her inside, bless him, and leaves her to bathe. She lays in the bath and washes every inch of herself, as you would, right? And recalls how her mother and father used to remind her that marriage and babies were not her destiny. Yeah.
I have a real problem with this.
Yes, I do.
Because it's like, as a woman, generally speaking, you pine for that.
Yeah. Especially in this age, in ye old, absolutely.
Definitely.
And she's lost in thought when there's a knock at the door. And she stands still in the bath. So she gets up and she puts on one of Lorian's shirts that they had let her keep for sleeping. He comes in and he says, "That's my shirt." And she says, "Well, you can't have it back."
I love their banter.
He tells her to get into bed because she's cold. This is the bed that I like. This
one bed with nobody else in the room trope.
Yes, which is interesting.
Why is it interesting?
He says he won't let the bath go to waste, and she's like, "I can leave."
Oh, and he's like, no.
Well, he says, "If the sight of a male body offends a lady as meek and modest as yourself, then she can close her eyes, knowing that she indeed is not meek or modest."
No.
In the slightest.
She's just told the barmaid that they're all her men.
Now his pants drop to the floor and she checks out his toned ass. Of course it is. He turns and smiles and says, "See something you like?" And she says, nothing at all. Now he has his bath and then he stands, but this time he faces her and she checks out his penis through slitted eyes.
What would that look like to you? Like, would you be trying, like, as if, I'm sure this is what kids do when they want to pretend they're asleep, but they're actually like, my husband does this too when he's trying to pretend he's awake. He'll have one eye that's away from me closed.
Oh,
and this eye open so that I know that that he's awake.
That he looks like
he's
awake.
actually just trying not to fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's the opposite, but the kids are... kids are trying to stay awake.
Yeah. I feel like the slitted eyes, like if you're concentrating on making your eyes slitted, you look like a dickhead.
Yeah.
He gets into bed and she rolls over to face him. She whispers, "Why are you working with the Fae?" And he doesn't answer her. He only says, "Go to sleep." She rolls over and she thinks that she knows when a man wants a woman and Lorian wants her.
Thank you for a beautiful shift.
That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Join us again next week as we continue Kingdom of Lies, Book 1, A Court This Cruel and Lovely.
Whichever platform you're listening on, we would so appreciate if you could leave us a 5-star review. It helps our podcast grow. You can follow us at Instagram, Facebook and TikTok at The Night Shift Court.